name is Madison Zulwitz, and I am the event coordinator with Doug. So I specifically help run the local meetup programs as well as our regional meetups that we host occasionally. So if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, I feel like I have met most of you, but it's good to see a few new faces as well. I'm going to do a quick intro to Doug and who we are and who we support. Doug is a free community for users, implementers, and resellers of Microsoft business applications. We mainly focus on Microsoft Dynamics 365, GP, and Power Platform community and help those people get some educational opportunities to help them grow and excel in their professional and personal careers. Our rules of engagement is we essentially just ask that all of these meetups are held as solely educational meetups. So please keep sales pitches out of it. We're not here to promote our personal companies. This is solely educational. We want everybody coming to these events to leave with some good educational information and some networking. We have multiple different programs with Doug. So we have an online open forum discussion. We have webinars, conferences, regional and local meetups, team up program. We have Skill Up program, as well as a YouTube channel where you can find multiple different local meetups. We record their sessions and we post them on YouTube. So if you're ever curious to see some old meetups, if you couldn't make all of them, they will always be posted on YouTube.
Yeah, we have some good, interesting ones out there. Tanya, I think the one I like the most is the one that you did with Will, talking about Copilot and AI. It was spectacular. So yeah, feel free to go and look there. We hope you watch those things, and you can find this meetup again through this website as well of Doug's if you want to find. So we operate as a virtual meetup, but there's also local geographic chapters. In Madison, you're going to get to that here, actually.
Yep. And just a quick note as well, I always post to YouTube for these specific meetings. I'll post it in the discussion of the Meetup platform as well as a comment on the event. So if you guys are ever looking for the YouTube video, feel free to check there, or you can always shoot me an email or a Teams message. So moving on to our regional Doug meetups, these are a little bit larger in scope than our local meetups like this one today. So it is a full day of educational sessions. We have multiple different tracks throughout the day, and they are in person. So our next one will be in Toronto, Canada. We have a few folks on this call that actually help out with that. It's looking great. We have almost all of our agenda spots filled. So if you're curious to see what the agenda looks like, feel free to check that out. This will be November 26, 2024, and this is our last 2024 regional meetup. And the next one is our Southeast Regional Meetup that originally was on October 29th, but due to the hurricane has been rescheduled to January 15th, 2025 in Tampa, Florida. And you can see all of the tracks. And both of these regional meetups are posted on our website for you to be able to register.
Free to attend, right?
Yep, free to attend.
Perfect.
And we have our big conference of the year. So our 2025 DynamicsCon conference is going to be from May 13th to the 16th of 2025. We currently have session submissions open. So if you are interested in submitting a session and wanting to speak at Chicago, I would definitely suggest that you submit your session. It is a great way to share some education, a full days of networking. It's a really great opportunity.
I went to the last one in Denver. It was fabulous, fabulous sense of community, lots of education. Yeah, I encourage anybody who can go that they should go.
Yep, and I'll send something in the chat as well if you're curious to finding out a little bit more about that. Our agenda is now available for our DynamicsCon Virtual 2024. This is another free event. The sessions are chosen by you all, the community. So we typically have about 5,000 or more community members join, and this will be on November 13th, 2024. So it's coming up shortly. We encourage you all to join another full day of education, lots of different channels and tracks going on at once. Really great day of education.
Awesome. And then it's over to
Yep.
Yep, that's great, Madison. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Nancy Calder. I chair the group that organizes these meetups. I'm joined by Vanda, Tanya, and Rick, who are part of our organizing group. We have some really exciting things coming up. Today, we're going to focus on estimating. Next one in November, we're going to talk about how you actually track your Dynamics and Power Platform projects. You can use project operations. We're going to have a look at that. And then going into the new year, we're, the buzz on everybody's lips is about Copilot and AI. So we're going to start talking about in calendar year 25, how do we leverage and embed Copilot and AI into our Dynamics projects successfully? Because what the vision of this group is how do you run your program successfully? And certainly Copilot and AI is something we don't want to ignore. So we're going to spend a fair bit of time next year talking about how to deliver successful programs with Copilot and AI as features, but also how to use them in your testing, in your design, in your development, that type of thing. So that's the future. Let's turn it over today. We're going to start with Eric and Jen, who are here from SEER 365. They're going to talk about how you can, structure and organize your project along the lines of estimating. And then they will hand it over to Tanya after that she's going to share a segment we're going to have as a running segment on what's my favorite new feature. In future, we're going to see if we can get some of the Microsoft product team and other people in the Microsoft channel to help join us on that topic as well. So without further ado, Jen, I'm going to hand it over to you, I think, and you're going to introduce the segment, and Eric is going to share screen.
Sure. Thank you so much, Nancy, and everyone for providing us the opportunity to join you today. I'm the sales lead for Americas for SEER 365, and I've brought along my colleague, Eric Hall, who is our Partner Success Director, and he's been working with Dynamics Solutions for 28 years. During that time, he's worked in various sales leadership roles across, small and large partner practices, including the Microsoft UK subsidiary. So I'm very much looking forward to Eric's presentation and insights into best practices around project estimation. And so without further ado as well, I'm going to pass it over to you, Eric, for you to take over and do your presentation.
Yeah, marvelous. Thank you very much. I just want to check everybody can see my screen okay? All good?
We can.
All good. Fantastic. Interesting, Nancy, that you mentioned Copilot and AI, because AI is now becoming one of the themes and threads around the whole sales process and the sales estimating piece as well. So it's something that as partners, we're looking to introduce not just into the projects themselves with D365, but also as separate threads, which brings another interesting caveat, which we look at when we say, okay, if we're implementing an ERP system, whether that's Business Central, whether that's finance, supply chain, we've got a defined set of rules, a defined set of principles that we've got to adhere to. If we're going CE, Power Platform, we're a little bit more fluid, but we can adopt a semi-agile approach. We can look at what we're doing around there. Although I'll quite happily have debates on agile versus wagile versus waterfall. And then you look at what we're doing with regard to AI and how we operate within there, and whether that's Azure AI or whether that's Copilot, and how we actually bring it up, then it really does challenge what we do with regard to estimating. So this session, what we're going to do is just, as Nancy quite rightly said, this is not deemed to be a sales session on SEER 365. This is just our experience and what we've come across over the years and the challenges faced with estimating your D365 projects. Just a tiny little bit of background, and it's more of a credibility caveat than anything else. When we started SEER 365, all of the background with the senior leadership team and a lot of the team members is 15 years plus in Dynamics partners and within the Dynamics partner channel. So we bring a lot of experience of all the challenges that a partner faces within those scenarios. So anyway, moving on. When we look at how we estimate, realistically, across the organization, we've got a series of competing forces. So we start off on the left-hand side with the customer. We all have come across different types of customers, but fundamentally, they're looking for bang for buck. They're looking at the best price they can get for the deliverables that have been put in place. They're looking to get the best partner resource that they can get. Now, a lot of people will recognize the fact that their pre-sales person will go out, sit in front of the customer, or talk to the customer. The customer will fall in love with that pre-sales person. They're the best thing since sliced bread. Absolutely fantastic. Can we have him for the life of the project? Can we have her for the life of the project? All of that kind of stuff. So they're looking for the person that they actually trust to be able to deliver that project. They want to know, what's it going to take on? What's it going to cost them? How much of my time and my team's time do I have to put into this project? And with that being said, that's then directly costing me money in time and productivity, as well as costing me money in the budget. So how quickly can you do this? What can you do around this? And therefore, I want to pay the least amount that I'll pay the reasonable amount that I can actually do. I want the best team from you, the partner, on board. I want the shortest time frame that I can possibly do it in, because I want to minimize the amount of cost to myself. So that's what we're starting from, that the customer is looking for. Then we look at the three different sides of the partner. So sales, wonderful. We want to get the deal done. We want to get our commission. We want to keep the customer happy. And you know what? If there's a bit of risk thrown in there, if there is a little bit of flexibility around the scope, let's get the deal over the line. We can qualify that. We can manage it from there on in. Now, I'm being very blasé when I say that about salespeople. There are different levels of salespeople across the partner channel. And as Jen pointed out, I've been in sales for quite a period of time. But fundamentally, the principle is sales want to get the deal over the line, and ensure that they've got that customer on the path of delivering that project. Delivery team, generally more risk adverse. A great combination is where sales and delivery actually work effectively together. But the delivery team will look at it based on the utilization stats and the resource that they've got available. So normally what they'll look for is, give us the most amount of time that the customer can actually afford here, because we need to ensure that we are able to deliver on the customer's expectations. And we want to ensure that we've got the right resource and the resource that's available to match our utilization stats within there. So that whole structure can be a little bit at odds with the sales team and to some degree at the customer. So we've got to try and pull all of that together. And then from a management perspective, it depends what's happening in the market. It depends what's happening within the organization at that point in time. But fundamentally, they want to pull together a team that can go out and effectively deliver on what the customer wants, do it with the least amount of risk, not be pulling through free change requests, not delivering free time, just being in a structure where they can happily go from project to project to project and keep that customer happy and keep that customer loyal. So that's what we've got. That's where we're starting from. So what is a price comprised of? Well, it's a lot of elements, but we've got to ensure that we capture the right level of all of these elements to be able to be accurate in our estimating. So first of all, what we're delivering, what's the scope? And that varies depending on the type of Dynamics projects that we're delivering. So a relatively straightforward one legal entity, business central, core financial implementation will be different to a multi-geographical rollout of finance and supply chain, or a power platform delivery where you've got a lot of fluid and flexibility around how we're actually doing it. But fundamentally what we're doing is we're taking, right, here's the scope that we've got. Here's the amount of effort that's required to deliver that scope. Here's how we're going to use it. So X times Y equals Z, so the amount of effort required times the rates that we're going to do equals Z, equals our price. Then on top of that, we've got licenses, assumptions, and any terms and conditions that we'd have to adhere with. So if we look at that as a relatively simple formula, why is it so difficult to get right? Why is it such a struggle to get right? It is literally the amount of effort required times the resource cost gives us our price within there. Now, over the years, and particularly in this role, working with partners, I've seen every single variation of pricing spreadsheet you can possibly imagine, with the world's greatest creativity thrown into it. You know, reams of VBA code in the background and all of that kind of stuff. But really what we come down to is if we don't get any of these elements right, our estimation process is going to be broken. And we can do some very simple things to shore that up. So let's look at the different estimation methods that we've got that are generally used across the partner channel. So if I go from left to right, well, actually, I go from top to bottom. So you've got top down and bottom up. Now, for those of you who've worked in the larger finance and supply chain environments, using a project plan where basically we're going down to our base level requirement, and from that we're assigning a resource, assigning a number of hours, and we build up and we build up and we build up and we build up, and we've actually got to a point where this is what the number is going to be. Now, we'll get the opposite of that, which tends to be sales driven, which is, well, we know how much the customer's budget is. So let's start with that and let's work out what we can do for the customer's budgets. That's our top up and our top, and so bottom up, top down. Resource based. For those of you who've worked on very, you can have an FTE model. Which basically means that we're saying we're delivering X amount of time and effort. So, you know, we've got a consultant full-time on the project for finance, we've got a consultant full-time in supply chain, we've got a solution architect for 20% of the time, and we'll cost on that basis. So the life of the project times the resource, instead of it being a number of hours like 20% project management, that kind of stuff, it literally is based on a full-time equivalent record, and we'll structure it to that. One of the benefits of those methods is that where you've got a customer that's got a full-time project manager, having a project manager on our side that's only 20% dedicated to the time means there will always be a conflict in the communications between the customer's project manager and the partner's project manager. Some of the other ones that are in here as well, package-based. We're seeing a lot of partners now taking core solutions, core structures, ABC model, if you want to call it that, where they're saying, for this price, you can have core finance. For this price, you can have core finance with a little bit of supply chain. And then on top of that, we can flex it without core manufacturing and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of fluidity associated with that. But fundamentally, what it comes down to is all of these different methods, we have to get down to the base element, because unless we actually understand the scope effectively, we are going to struggle to do all of these apart from maybe a package base. And even on a package base, we can end up catching a cold because we haven't understood what the full requirements are in place. So how accurate can we actually be on our estimates? So if we look at, let's take an example, a $1 million project here across the different phases that we've got. So first of all, you've got your system selection. So we're going to run this over a 15-month period. You then got your A&D exercise. You've then got your build, your acceptance, and deploy. Now, if we were to look at that and say, okay, what numbers would we put as a contingency on our pricing across those different points? So if I was to actually fill in those blue boxes, what would that look like? And working collectively internally, we came up with these kind of numbers, which is if you said, right, from day one, when someone asks you, speak to someone on a project and they say, what does that price look like? How much is it going to cost me? There is a really good chance you're going to look at that and go and say, well, I can get something that is probably 40% accurate. So my contingency is about 60% on there. But being in the industry for a while, it's somewhere around about that 40 to 50% is there or thereabouts. It's a real high level number. And as we go through that selection process and we start to understand more about the customer, that contingency percentages goes down. By the time we get to the end of analysis, literally we're 80% sure of what that number looks like. End of design, we're 90% sure of what that number looks like. Between the start of design and the end of build, obviously we're going to caveat that with an element of change request control, because there will some things come out of the woodwork. But by the time we get to the end of build, there is still a chance of stuff coming out of there when we get to acceptance. But fundamentally, we know what the price is going to be. Now, this has a different type of impact depending on the size of the project that we're doing here. So $1 million project over 15 months, there is chances to continually at the refinement of the estimate that we're actually going through. A 3-month, very simple core finance implementation or CE implementation for that matter, we don't have that opportunity. So we've got to be more strict in the way that we estimate in the beginning. So what are the steps that we can do to actually ensure that we do produce good estimates within here? I'm going to just let this one build. And what we would normally do is open this up to a room discussion, if you want to call it that, on the different challenges that people have faced and how they've achieved these. But if we go around the loop within here, we've got to establish a baseline of how we're going to estimate. And usually a great way of doing that is to create a series of baselines for the types of projects that we're involved in. So we know what it's going to cost us for core finance. We know what it's going to cost us for a case management solution. We know what it's going to cost us for a field service management solution. And then what we're doing is we're overlaying on top of that the specific requirements and variables for the customer that we're dealing with. Secondly, what we've got to be able to do is create a clear and repeatable process for discovery or understanding the requirements of the customer. If we can't do that, it's always going to be open and subject to probably what's the best phrase for that? Variation, I'll use as a word for that. In other words, if you've got a salesperson, pre-salesperson that goes and sits, and this can be anyone from, the owner of the organization to a junior salesperson, they go and sit in front of that customer, and you've got a combination of a spreadsheet that someone's created that captures all of the requirements, or a use of OneNote or email. I've captured it in email, pen and paper, old school, memory. I can remember. Simple, isn't it? I've been doing this for a long, long time. All of that adds a blocker and a risk to being able to create good estimates for the projects that we've got. So putting a structure in place within our organization of how we gather the requirements for the customer and how we measure those requirements against our estimation process becomes really, really important, because if we don't have that, we don't have the scope. And if you remember what we said back on our price slide, we start off with scope. What are we doing? How long it's going to take us? If we can't get that scope number right, we're always going to be in a situation where we're going to struggle to provide the estimates. Then peer review. How do we actually do this? Now, I've worked in organizations where you've got all kinds of board approval level environments for the size of deals that you've got, whether that's, is it an opportunity that we want to chase? Is it something that we want to assign pre-sales money to? Is it something that now we've got a greater level of scope, we now want to proceed and invest further in, and all that kind of wonderful stuff? Everything from it being my as sales director's view or decision to say, yeah, we're going to go for that. Doesn't matter what it costs, because the deal's worth it and we think we can win it. So there's all that kind of structure that goes across our partner channel. But if we're consistent in the way that we do that, and consistent in the way that we review the estimates that are being, and the scope, importantly, that's being put through from the customer, then we stand less chance of having errors in our estimate. Classic one that most people will have come across is that it's Friday afternoon, you get a call from an existing customer, they want to switch on a bit of functionality. Can you let me have something? I just need a headline number. So the salesperson or the person that's answered the call goes, yeah, sure. Well, my view, I think it's going to be there or thereabouts. You've now given that customer a number. It's in their head. No matter how much you try and unravel that, you're really going to struggle. because you've broken the process that you put in place. You've allowed an individual to just go, yeah, I think it's X, Y, Z. When we've got all of that right, then what we've got to do is basically manage to provide a structure around the scope, the assumptions, the commercials, and link them all together. How do we overcome, going back to what our customer was looking for right in the beginning, how do we overcome the, well, I want it for the lowest amount of price in the quickest amount of time? Well, the one way we do that is, or one of the ways that we do that is going down to a granular level in the requirements of being able to prove that it takes X, Y, Z to do this, 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 and this. Right, Mr. Customer, what would you like to remove from your project? The other way that we do it is actually have it as a fixed price delivery where basically the customer knows what they're getting. In effect, what we've done is we've put it all in a box, stuck a ribbon around it, put a price tag on it and said, there you are, Mr. Customer, you can go and buy this and you will get this. So we've got to be able to do that. And then consistently, as we're going through our project, we've got to set the expectation that there will be updates, there will be reviews on what we're actually delivering. I would normally, if I was a room, ask people to put their hands up and say how many have worked over the years on a time and materials project. And I think the vast majority of the people in the room would put their hands up and say, yes, I have. If I was to ask your customer if it's a time and materials project, they'd probably tell you, yes, commercially it actually is, but he's given me a price and I expect him to stick to that budget. So is it a time and materials project then? No, it isn't. It's a fixed price project because the customer has that amount in their mind. So setting the expectation with the customer that we will need to update it, we will need to review it. You know, the line is, we're not a charity, we're providing a service to you. So Mr. Customer, you would expect your customers to do exactly the same as well. So let's have an open dialogue with that. I'm going to just touch on, there are plenty of tools out there that can help assist this. Obviously, this isn't a sales pitch. I just want to give you an example of what we actually do within here. This particular one, we use a tool here that basically allows us to capture the fit gap against the core product, capture the estimates, produce the statement of work, and basically automate the RFP ingestion process as well. And there are a number of ways that you can actually do on that. But I suppose my point really is that once you've got your process set in place, even if it's an Excel spreadsheet, if you have a defined method that you can go and capture and agree the scope with the customer, because let's face it, if we produce a solution design document that's 150 pages long and it's wordy and it's full of text and so on and so forth, there's a really good chance the customer is going to skim read it at best. And even if they do read it in detail, not necessarily understand it. And that's where our scope creep comes into play. So being able to effectively find a way to actually capture that so that we can get the customer to sign off the requirements in stages so we're agreeing what we deliver will be right at the heart and the base of our estimating process. So just to cover off some of the hints, tips and challenges that we have to overcome within here. And normally we do this as a question structure within that, but we've got to ask ourselves these questions when we're looking at the process we're going to adopt as partners. How long does it take you to produce your estimate? Does it slow down the deal process in itself? I've seen, and we all will have seen on numerous occasions, partners lose opportunities and lose deals to other partners because they've been able to provide an estimate to that customer in a timely manner. Someone else has been more structured in the way that they do it. Someone else has got a better way of capturing and qualifying the requirements. And in doing that, they've then been able to provide the estimate to the customer quicker, more effectively, and being able to articulate it more effectively. You lose the deal. All right. Also, look at what is the cost versus the benefit of how we produce our estimates. A labor intensive, resource heavy estimating process is going to significantly increase your pre-sales cost. And if I ask most partners, what's the time that they manage to struggle the most out of, and this, whether it's dedicated pre-sales or whether it's people that sit within your technical teams and your functional teams, those people that can take a set of requirements and then provide the estimate and translate that through tend to be expensive resource who are also ridiculously busy. With that being the case, how quickly you can get that and how much you can do that without actually relying on the time taken to do that becomes very effective if you can speed that process up. Therefore, you're reducing your cost, and that cost, of course, is straight off your bottom line. Who's responsible for it? You know, and this is an age-old argument. If sales are just responsible for providing the estimates, do we have an issue when we provide a sales to delivery handover process and delivery go, well, it was Eric who said it was this much, and I don't necessarily agree with him without saying that directly in front of the customer, but the customer gets the gist. And then the customer will sell, well, Eric said this and Eric said that, and you will constantly have this battle within sales to delivery. So what you need is a defined structure in place where delivery have pre-agreed what it takes to do X amount of your project or X elements of your project, so that the salesperson or the pre-salesperson knows that when they say this activity is going to take this amount of time, they have got the buy-in of the people who are actually sitting in front of the customer and delivering it. You know, also, if we look at that as well, you know, we get different types of resource within the average partner. How is the person who's doing the estimate incentivized, and what's their experience and what's their qualifications of doing that? And the reason why I mention that is that if a person who's providing an estimate is incentivized on deal size, I'm going to pick the worst case scenario here now. Deal size, and they are also incentivized on the number of deals they're able to bring in, then if they don't care about the amount of margin that's in an opportunity, deals will get lopped, deals will get sold and missold. And I come back to this point of having a defined set of agreed estimate elements that delivery have actually said we can work to, and that then having an approval structure behind it with the management team and across the organization provides then a repeatable process that you can actually use. Knowing where the risks are, knowing where your margin is. If you get to that wonderful part of your sales negotiation where you sit down with the customer, they say, yes, I'd like to go ahead, Eric, that would be brilliant, thank you very much, but you need to sharpen your pencil. If at that point in time you haven't got a clue where your money is in your opportunity, then sharpening your pencil becomes virtually impossible. So understanding your cost structure, your margin elements within there is absolutely key. One of the ways that we can do that, going back to what I said about delivery, providing a structured amount of effort associated with a deliverable item, is that we can use fixed price to actually do that. There was a time when the partner channel would run screaming away from the concept of fixed price. That world has changed. As I've said, the partner expects us to be able to deliver for X, Y, Z. We've moved into very much a consumer-driven market structure, rather than it being a sales-driven market structure, which it was. The customer is already educated before they get to us, before we're having that first conversation. So being able to provide that fixed price, which the customer is happy with, we've nailed down the scope, we know what we're doing, provides a lot of surety of what we do. Of course, if we're able to deliver faster than it actually costs us in time within there, we make more money on a fixed price deal. So tools, I will come back to over and over again, but tools is absolutely key to this. Without having the tool set in place within your organization, you're always going to have people going off on tangents, people doing things their own way. You need to provide a structure behind it to be able to do that. Obviously, here at SEER, we do have a whole tool structure behind that and what we do. But basically, the reason why we created that, and this is fundamental, is because we'd sat in that structure as you are in the partner channel, and we actually chased all of these challenges of how we get this right. And that's the reason why we built the tool set. So what we're saying is, there's lots of options and there's choices out there, but make sure you adopt that standard practice and use a tool to support it, because by doing that, you're going to get repeatability. Repeatability only increases profitability within there. Final point on this is that you look at different ways that you can actually package up your estimate. If you want to be different than the competition out there, looking at what you can do is price to deliver, different types of payment methods that are associated with it, different types of cost structures in there. So using finance elements to actually allow the customer to only pay when they get a deliverable. There's all kinds of ideas that are out there of how we can put an estimate in front of the customer that is more attractive than simple time and materials, rate times effort equals XYZ. Please sign here. So be creative about you doing it. Make sure you've got a repeatable process. Make sure you've got tools that support that repeatable process. So that's pretty much all for me. I think I've not far off Vander on my half hour.
I think you're
That was
about
awesome.
there.
Yeah,
Thank
that was
you.
awesome. Sorry, I wasn't getting off mute fast enough and onto the cameras. No, I really
Very good.
enjoyed that, Eric, and I'd love to hear from the audience. Anybody have some stories that they want to share around their experience with estimating? Because I'd love to hear what the group thinks, and I can certainly share some perspective from having been at Avanade, who's a very big global SI and a very small partner in the ISV channel, the differences that I've seen in estimating, but I'll just open it up for questions and any comments that we have from the audience. Anyone want to come off mute? Did you learn anything today? No, everybody's being super quiet.
Stunned into silence, Nancy. That's
yeah. I really enjoyed it, Eric. I mean, it's even if you're a customer on this call or listening to this after, it gives you insight into, the partner that you're working with, what they have to go through and how you interact. I'm totally with you on the tools, having tools and letting, providing consistency, and not having those tools and just letting people go like this to estimate a program only leads to, challenges in setting expectations. So yeah, and I'm a great believer in not letting sales on their own go off and estimate things. There has to be some agreement, delivery. Yeah, see everybody's walking, right? Like we've got to be able to deliver what we're selling, right? You can't just sell it and you're just going to create a bad scenario for the client team, for the partner team. It's going to be horrible for them. Yeah, go ahead, Tanya.
Eric, I love this. I think it's great. I always love these enterprise events because I learn so much. But you mentioned earlier on about AI. What do you think the biggest impact to this whole area will be? And what do you think is today's impact? And what do you think, next year, or I know you don't have a crystal ball, but where do you see fixing the biggest issues today with AI could be?
Okay, so the thing with AI at the moment is that if we're all 100% honest with ourselves, we have some sound bites of where it's applicable in opportunities. So we use those sound bites to be able to say, wouldn't this be great? Wouldn't be this? When we go back to the early days of XRM, for those that remember it, they were in the channel long enough within there, now it's a relationship platform. You can do what you want with it. Oh, ideas came pouring out of and we came back to the point that, well, they've got to be deliverable in all of this. AI is a similar kind of thing. The biggest challenge we're going to face with AI is, where does that data that we're using for generative AI come from, and who owns that data?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mhm.
the challenge that we're going to face our customers and partners within there is when we're using a data set to be able to provide automation within our organization, whether that's generation of contractual documents, whether that's generation of outfacing documents within there, we've got to ensure that the structure that we've got, the data sources that we're using behind there, not just your generic internet sources, actually really do provide benefit to that
Mhm.
process. Otherwise, what we're talking about is glorified workflow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
I'll add too. I'm really hopeful and optimistic that AI through machine learning is going to be able to help us with estimating. When I first got out of university, I worked for the National Railway here in Canada, and we used to produce estimates for the marketing team to price carload costing. We had like 264 different variables that we estimated to do, moving a car of grain from, point A to point B. And we used large amounts of data and we built models, regression analysis to actually figure out what those estimating factors are. And in Avanade today, we have estimating factors that we apply to all of our scenarios. Like if you're going to build a plugin, it's this factor if it's simple, it's this factor if it's complex, and everything we do is a build out of factors. But I think that AI and machine learning, through the capabilities it has in modeling and prediction, should be able to reduce the burden we have and give us some good, strong repeatability based on the data we collect about our projects. That's really where I'd like to see us go in the future.
So,
What do you think about
Nancy,
that?
just to add
Yeah.
to that, I mean, one of the things, I know it's not a sales pitch, but one of the things that we're doing on the platform is an RFP ingestion, which is the reason why I mentioned the point of where's the data source that it's coming from within there. So we're using AI to actually read your RFP document, PDF, Word document, spreadsheet, and then we're using AI to be able to match that to the requirements that we got within the guide portfolio. So out of that, you've then got a very quick. So I'll give you an example. One partner, Microsoft came to them. They had 48 hours to turn around an estimate. Microsoft had been engaged with the customer. They threw over the wall a whole bunch, a raft, hours and hours and hours of Teams meetings recordings, and an RFP document.
Yikes.
So they used Copilot to actually strip out the Teams meetings, the requirements. They then sucked those into a document. They used our RFP ingestion tool to bring that into the guide platform to match it to the requirements to be able to turn around an estimate in the time that Microsoft were looking for.
Yeah,
That kind of real world scenario of where it's actually helping the individual speed up their process without it affecting the integrity of what they're doing, I think is where we want to see our AI come in. Yeah,
yeah.
and yeah, absolutely.
And I
And
had
I
a
think-
chance to see that tool recently. And what I thought was really cool about it is in places where we often get hurt, and sometimes our industry people help us with this, is the client doesn't necessarily ask for everything that they're going to need because they
Yeah.
expect that we're going to know some things. So I think your
Yeah.
tool and others should be looking as well.
It's
And when
what's
they're
missing.
like what is the
Yeah.
client not asking
Yeah.
for that they're assuming we already know that they're going to need? And industry often, and Tanya, you may want to talk about that because from your you coming at it from FinServe, right? So you're going to see
Yeah.
where they're not asking for the right things.
100%. I say that all the time to our salespeople is they're not asking the right questions. There's no standard template of an RFP that I've ever seen in 20 years of being in here. But the things that stick out the most to me are the missing parts. They're not asking the right questions. And you want to go back to that prospect and say, these are the real questions you want to be asking. But then it's like the salespeople are like, no, we want to get going. So it's a real balance there. And but it's an education. And I think there's lots of possibilities with AI to help the guidance to people issuing RFPs in a better way, but also the reporting back to say pre-AI, here's how accurate our forecasts, our estimations were. Post AI, it would be so cool to see the analysis of that, just to see if we really are going to see the benefits that we think should be there. And then the other part of it is, yeah, here's the estimate. but here's the discount we're going to give to that client. So to see just, you know,
I
how,
was going to go the opposite way. If it could even tell us based on what it knows, what can, you know, Eric, you went through all the different stages, what contingency, if it could tell us what contingency we should be building in, because there's a propensity to have these things missing at these different stages.
Well, everybody knows the one thing that a customer's looking for once you've got a certain pass. So we've agreed what the budget's going to be. We're now moved into either A&D or delivery, but certainly when we move into delivery, any project manager worth their salt will have at their fingertip what that estimate of complete number is. And the variance associated with that estimate complete number. So, you know, if we look at what AI could actually potentially do with us, with monitoring what's going on within there, ensuring that we've got that ETC automated or relatively automated in there would be very cool, because that the amount of burden that puts on a project is quite significant.
Yeah,
and you know what too, Eric?
Getting to that detailed project plan, I think is Rick still on? Because he used to love when we worked together at ADX that, you know, him as the seller, me as the practice owner, when I would give him a detailed project plan, it was so much easier to sell it to a client because they can see all the WBS elements, they can see all of the estimates, they can actually see that big number that you've put in front of them, how it breaks down, and it gives a sense of reality that it's really been thought out, and they can get some confidence in it. Sorry, Tanya, to you.
No, I was just going to say, and we're just spitballing, which is fantastic. I love this conversation. Is I would love AI to look at, to your point, Nancy, we've got 15 plugins, we've got all this custom development. How much technical debt is the client going to assume based on these projects? And to have an AI go in and say, here's what we think your future plan needs to be for maintenance and for ongoing upgrades and ongoing support. Like, there's so many aspects of this that I think are truly amazing and waiting for us, that nobody has time to do this, and we need machine learning to do this for us. But it's a real consideration for clients to understand what they're getting into after you're doing these estimates, to say, and then here's another value add service we provide to you. We're going to help you plan out the next, you know, N years to manage this technical debt when we go through this project. I think there's a way to do it, but I think it's a real practical application that a lot of clients, again, back to that point of they're not asking all the right questions. They don't know what they don't know. This hopefully, or in theory, should be able to come up with a solution for that as well, in terms of like the challenge.
What we do is we read the RFP, and then out of that we have based on the history of, and this is where the data set becomes important, based on the history of the people who have completed the surveys over time. If they've selected this particular requirement, they've also selected this, and this.
Right.
So rather than it being just because it says general ledger, wow, you need everything with general ledger in there, or whatever it might be. It's actually looking at it intelligently and saying, right, on average, these are the additional requirements that are added in here. What can we do? Do you still got the human element that you need to do on that, and look at that and go, actually, does that really make sense? But we will get to a point where AI is going to be doing a really, really good job on that and being really effective based on its learning. So yeah, things to look forward to, Tanya.
That's really good. Yeah, that'll cue us up for our next session in November is going to be all about tracking. So actually getting data, which will give us the base to, you know, leverage some AI. So thank you, Eric and Jen, for joining us today. Does anybody else have any other questions for them before we hand it over to Tanya to talk about her favorite features? Any questions out there? No? Okay, thanks. Over to you, Tanya.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Let me just get teed up here.
I would like to add just something very quickly. In our project, I'm Mo. We are a small Microsoft partner here in Montreal, Canada. So what we do also for a lot of clients in our estimate is that we always give them a range, always a range. We never give one number. Because, you know, even though they say we're 100% sure, which they never say that, but even if they say that, they always change it. And that range actually put them at ease. Like, they look at that, it's going to take between 80 to 120 hours. They tend to always say, you know, if I'm lucky, I'm probably going to hit 80. And we know that 80 is not going to be hit, but in an ideal world, it will be hit. So that helps a lot. And I think AI with all these, statistical models, it could actually give you like a distribution of what would be the possibility of, ending between 80 to, 120 hours, or what, 100 or 200 hours. So I think AI, when you deal with AI models, they always come up with a confidence level. And if they come up and say, 90% chance you're going to hit under 120 hours, but then still, there's a chance you're going to get more than that, depending on these risk factors that maybe we captured some, we didn't capture the others. So, yeah.
Yeah, that ties into, like, people are really interested in estimating. I'd encourage you to have a look at the Project Management Institute. They have very, very deep knowledge and models and processes around the estimating, as you would expect within a project management organization. And one of the estimating models is MOP, most likely optimistic and pessimistic. And, when I was working with developers in the 90s, I would always ask them, like, what do you think is your best guess, and what do you think is your worst guess? And let's try to figure out somewhere in between. And that's what we'll use as our estimate to try to, account for that. All right, Tanya, did that buy you enough time?
Oh yeah, no, I'm good. Thank you. I just didn't want to jump on Mo there. So thank you. Okay, I have taken myself off camera just for performance purposes, but so again, this is my humble opinion about top features. There's a billion of them out there. This will focus just on the CE and Power Platform, not into the other areas of Dynamics. So, and these are items that for the release wave 2 between October and March. So that's me. So I'll start with the Dynamics 365, specifically the sales app, because that's an area of focus for our business. So again, just a caveat here, it's a very slim piece of the puzzle here. So so within the sales app, obviously there's across all the apps, there's hundreds of new features. There's your link there, but Microsoft's really focusing on a lot of the enabling, so the journeys and enabling sales sellers and so on. So that's the theme there for a lot of this release this month. So the one big thing is the cadence. So as everyone knows, Microsoft has a billion mini releases all the time, but the two major are the spring and the fall. Except now there will be a monthly cadence on the Sales Hub app, which is really great. So you'll be able to monitor, what's coming. So for example, and this monthly cadence is starting now, in the October release, which is number 2410, their focus is on real-time in-app notification enhancements and the toggle in the app, which, toggle to the new look. It will be defaulted to be always on. So there's going to be mini releases to enable us as providers and clients as users to say waiting 6 months for a feature in this day and age is too long. So Microsoft is actually addressing that, and it's really great because it improves our ability to innovate and get access to newer features. So, and these aren't going to be small release changes. Like, these are tiny ones to start, but there's some new ones that are going to be coming out. So something to monitor and something to watch in the release channel on a monthly basis now, which is really, really fascinating. So I liked that feature. Again, just on the sales app side of things, lots to do with lead qualification. This is an area of the sales app that has not had a lot of love for, oh my gosh, like 2 decades. My vintage goes back to version 1 of Dynamics, like CRM. And I've seen the old lead forms and the 20 years later lead forms, and they really haven't changed too much in terms of functionality. So this is a great new feature if you do use the business development tools, we'll call them, starting with lead. The qualification process has had a little bit of a facelift. As an ISV and a provider, we always had to customize this for clients, and we built it into a product approach. I'm glad that we can now deprecate our custom code in favor of using a Microsoft feature. And so what this allows off the shelf to do is a couple things. There's more to it, but these are the features I liked a lot. One is having an interface to identify and set what you care about. That never existed before. Two is the ability to create multiple opportunities from a single lead, which has been one of the biggest asks that we've had for years and years. So that's awesome. And then the AI generated lead qualification summary to say, hey, Nancy, I've got this opportunity for you. Vonda, I've got this one for you. I'm going to sign out multiple opportunities, but I'm also going to send it along with an AI generated summary for you. So it's knowledge transfer, which is fantastic. So that's part of the GA for October 2024. Big theme of AI always in these releases. So lots of really neat little things. Some reaching into next April, some in preview for December. So just some AI generated email follow-ups. This has been in progress for quite some time. So there's just more enhancements coming to the email follow-ups. You'll see inside the forms, there's lots of Copilot generation features now, which is kind of hit and miss, I'll say right now, but it's certainly got some legs, and it's certainly going to come to full fruition soon. If you are using AI, looking at your meetings and recording them, lots of really neat features coming for AI recommendations from meetings. And I have to say, every week I get clients asking me, what AI meeting generation tools are you seeing out there? And 3 came across my desk today, and I'm like, well, I'll start looking at Teams and Copilot and recording and things like that. So there's a lot of third parties in there, and I think Microsoft coming in with lots of these neat tools finally will provide a nice feature set of tools you already have in your ecosystem. There's a feature that Microsoft's calling a feature. It's been interesting in its rollout as Microsoft has these suggestions to update your records. So visually, users will see, hey, you haven't filled in this field. This is what we're suggesting you fill it in. I can't say it's being received well, but it's an enhancement with an AI power suggestion. So it's coming. It's a neat tool. I think people are just a little bit weary about it right now. It's like, why is it trying to fill in my data for me? I should fill in my data for me. So, but it's there. It's right now we can turn it off, but it's something to note. And then another nice little AI empowered feature around that action suggestion area is on an opportunity. How can you better engage with that opportunity, which I think is really neat. And I think there's lots in the works for that kind of feature as well. So I'd say look out for that one. Here's an example of Copilot email assistance. This is GA as of the beginning of October. So there's an email experience inside of the sales app or the CE area, where you're creating a new email from inside the CRM versus outside in Outlook, which is a different Copilot experience. Sorry, everybody. So there's natural language Copilot experience where you see in the screenshot there, you can just start to describe what you need, and Copilot will try to draft it. It'll allow you to customize it, obviously, before you send it out, and then you can adjust its tone to be casual or professional or whatnot. And then you can also have Copilot build it like the length of the email according to the sentiment and so on. So some neat stuff in there, and it's available now. This one's coming, although there is a way to kind of see parts of this. So this is GA next summer, but Microsoft inside of the CRM right now, they haven't had a lot of facelift area into the existing dashboards feature. And I said this before, I think on one of these meetings, but I think Microsoft is kind of moving towards a Copilot dashboard as your homepage, more so than the regular dashboards that we've all been using for years and years. So in the Sales Hub, you'll see that there's a Copilot home. And again, the full home experience is not available just yet, but you can actually add the Copilot table as a dashboard to the CRM today. It doesn't have all these visuals, which is coming in the Copilot home, but it's got some really neat things. You can see in the screenshot there is some suggested actions. You've got some goals, targeting and sort of like goal metrics view in here. You've got a focus area to say, these are the opportunities that are probably the most likely to close. So make sure those key opportunities are getting some TLC. And then obviously latest updates on account data, as well as there's a really neat tool coming with, it's called a chat tool with Sales Copilot. So you'll be able to actually interact. Up at the top right of my screen here, you see new chat. You're going to be able to chat with your sales AI. It's going to be super cool. So look for that next year. And then some more guts in the ability to see an AI generated account summary. So this has existed for a little bit, but it's just getting better. So it's the Copilot summary will build its summary based on associated data. So opportunities on the account, contacts on the account, related data. So it's going to build out this summary for you. There's also things like show me all the related opportunities, for instance, look at associated leads to it, and of course, latest news that's available out in the universe. So some nice things. It depends on what your client style is. So if you are B2B, this obviously makes a lot of sense. If you're more style of businesses, for our business, for instance, our clients manage money for people. So people don't have public profiles unless you look at a LinkedIn kind of experience. So the AI generated summaries are going to be great when it's more of a company kind of record. Okay. I couldn't find any screenshots on this one. It's supposed to be GA in November and only to the US, but there's supposed to be a really neat feature to summarize sales documents. So any document that would be linked to a contact, opportunity, lead, and account for now. And it'll be giving you recommendations on next best actions, NBA next best actions based on the last activity for those records. So really neat to be able to dive into documents that you're collecting and associating. And this is just one more reason to have integrated document management or sort of like a standard as to document management, because AI is going to be reaching in and helping you see things. And my clients are going to love this for sure. A few deprecations. There's always lots of deprecations, but every release always is going to show us this stuff. So I just called out a couple of them, just things that hung around for a while that I didn't see a lot of adoption for. And it's interesting to see that some of these like playbooks and talking points and things like that are going to be deprecated. So I thought I'd throw in a couple of deprecations for you too. And that takes us now to the Power Platform, a few top features over here. There's tons and tons and tons. I don't have time to go through them all, but obviously it's across Power BI, Power Apps, Power Pages, Power Automate, and Microsoft Copilot Studio. One thing I will call out that I didn't put in my sort of top features is just the Power BI and data integration moving over into Fabric more and more. So lots of really significant changes coming on the Power Platform, obviously. This one was a little one, but an impactful one. I thought it was really nice, finally, that Microsoft is taking some legacy pages and finally moving them. They've been threatening this for years since we went to online, but it's finally here, where all the admin settings, this on the right side of my screen, this is the legacy screen view. So the legacy look and feel is finally moving into an app experience on the left side of my screen. So this is great. I've already also seen, any third-party ISV kind of solutions moving in here automatically too, in terms of the settings area. So it's great. I think it's a fantastic enhancement and it's long overdue. So this new app experience is actually in your app selector. And you can see here, the app experiences through the Power Platform environment settings area. So I like that a lot. Some clients in Canada have this already. Some American clients don't have it yet. So public preview came in September. GA is supposed to be January. But as I said, some clients actually already have this live in their environment. All right, moving along. A couple of Power Automate top features I liked, being able to build Teams flows with natural language. I think anytime you're trying to introduce such a watershed technology like AI, making it very easy for the lay person to start to figure out how to use it, because it's not necessarily an easy concept for many people. But with Microsoft really focusing on natural language to build these things, it's going to be really a game changer for a lot of people. So GA for that is December 2024. If you're using or thinking about using desktop flows, the AI recorder, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Just capturing your mouse movement, your clicks and things like that to build your flows. Game changer, super, super cool. GA next March. AI powered suggestions for next best action. We talked a little bit about that as well in sort of like the opportunity experience, for instance, but this is also next best action in your Power Automate. Like awesome, super, super cool. So GA in November. And then when you are building flows, it's not always easy to kind of see what the description is or to make sure people are putting a description of it. Now, well, as of December, you're going to be able to use AI to generate a description of your flow. It's going to be really cool because that's one of the hardest parts to educate, end users on, is just what is that flow doing? It's a very techie experience for most people, and it's a very vertical experience. There's not sort of like that nice flow charty kind of thing. Microsoft is providing a way to actually just generate a description of the what. So this is really great for education, training, tombstoning your flow design and so on. So look for that feature. I think it's a really great one. In Power Apps, just a couple of little things. This one stood out to me quite a lot just because anything that allows you to manipulate list views easier, I'm all for it. So this one is a new grid feature for Power App grids. So letting you do different manipulation with grouping and aggregation. There's a nicer approach for column reordering. There's now a new sort button when you're in a list mode on any grid. There's a neat little command bar for nested grids as well, which is really, really neat. We saw that earlier in the opportunities area about a year or so ago with one of the ways that they're rendering the opportunities. You can set the column widths to a specific pixel value now, which is really neat. If you work in Pixel World, I sometimes do, but I don't know how this is going to be a broad type of feature, but it's there if it's useful. And then it's funny, this is an interesting one. So you're going to be able to select all the records with an infinite scroll in this new grid, but there is a maximum of 1,000 records. So it's not really infinite scroll, it's infinite to 1,000 rows, but still more than what you have today, which is nice. So to summarize that one, it's going to allow you to group and aggregate data differently and better, hopefully and more powerfully, reorder your columns, set your with columns, and complete other tasks with ease. So that's a really neat one. I like that one too. This is a tiny one, but again, some of the features inside of CE have just not changed for a very long time. And one of the areas is charts, and specifically in charts of just how do I interact with a chart to assign it, share it, save it, and so on. And then as well on dashboards. So the experience has been very, very legacy for all of these kind of commands or dialogues. These are very in the weeds, very tiny, but kind of like, oh, finally, this is up to speed. You only know this if you straddled the old legacy version for years and years and years. If you're net new to these platforms, you just think that's the standard experience. But when you have worked on the platform for a long time, you realize some of these features just were never touched and when they went to online. So Microsoft, it looks like we're just getting some nice tidy experiences. This is a screenshot just showing if I want to share the chart, Microsoft's share button now on the charts window is to call the same share experience when you're sharing a view, for instance. So that's a nice thing that's live as of October. And that's it. That's a wrap. I went really fast through it, but those are the ones that stood out to me. I think there's lots and lots. There's hundreds, obviously, in different areas of the platform that I didn't touch, but those are the ones that stood out to me. So
yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Super comprehensive. That's very enlightening, and that's just the sales app. I can only imagine across the rest of Dynamics.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I wanted to, while you were talking about the AI tools for going to meetings. I don't know if anybody else has had this experience. I mean, it's for me, I'm used to doing it with Teams, and we do a recording or Copilot turns on, but there's some tool out there that the person who's invited, if they don't show up, somehow they can send their AI, and all of a sudden you have this AI sitting in your meeting.
I just had a meeting like that.
And it's
Yeah.
like, great, click, I turn it off. It just, I don't know.
Well, it's funny. So that just happened to me today in a client meeting. They didn't actually tell me. I happened to notice, I always look at the attendees. I'm like, oh, you've invited an AI reader to our meeting. They didn't actually ask permission. So I think there's going to be like what's the best practice here? Like, are
Yeah.
you okay with this? Because they didn't ask me. The AI, one of the human attendees then sent me do you want to let this AI do what they're saying to do? But it was only when I mentioned, hey, I notice you've invited an AI reader in here. Then they then shared, oh, well, you can choose what to do and interact here. So I think there's a
fine line coming.
I
Yeah.
think that will happen, because I know myself, I'm like you, Tanya, and Nancy, I don't like it. At least we have control when we're doing Teams meetings. We always ask, are you okay to record the session? But I
Right.
don't like it when I join a call and it's me sitting with this AI attendee and they haven't even showed up yet. So
Yeah.
a lot of the time I click
Yeah.
deny.
Read.ai.
Yes,
Read.ai
exactly.
is the main one, and
Yes.
it comes and attends a meeting. And it actually, I signed up to it just to have an idea of what it actually did. And if you actually do the summary after it, it's very comprehensive. It records who said what, where, and when, very much like
Yeah.
Teams is doing. But the
Yeah.
report that it produces and the stats that it's produced is very good. Which means that it's even more worrying if you're not signed up for it and you're not. And it's got exactly what you said, who said it,
Yeah.
how did you respond, and everything else, which brings in that whole IP conversation that I was talking about earlier.
Exactly.
Of, you know,
Exactly.
if I've said something that's my IP and now that's available in public domain,
That's
there,
right. Yep.
who owns that? Where does that sit? So I think
Yep.
we're going to see a lot of challenges around. If we take the music industry as an example, someone's copied a bass riff 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and it's still going through court now because someone said you made a lot of money out of that. We're going to end up with those kind of scenarios. So I think the lesson learned is just be very, very careful about what you use and how you use it, because the tools are great, but like any tool, if it's misused, it's
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go into a wrap up now. Or does anybody else have questions or comments on Tanya's favorite features?
Or any other features that I didn't call out?
I just love the natural language for Canvas apps, because that has not been my strength. And if you haven't come from a really, really strong background in Excel, the formulae and the expressions, the hours spent on just trying to get those right. And I did some Copilot studio training actually with some, there was partner week, wasn't there? For October, and just being able to get something off the ground that looked half decent as a Canvas app. The natural language is just a godsend, and the Power Automate. So they're kind of, perhaps, I don't know if the Canvas apps, if the natural language is new for now, perhaps it was a bit earlier on, but to me, I think that's a game changer for people that are wanting to just get in, get hands on. And if you don't know all those expressions, those formulae, then the natural language really does a fairly accurate job. And I think a lot of it is about the prompting. The better you learn yourself to prompt, the sharper and the better these outputs are. So that's something I took away from the training, that it's the AI aspect is fabulous, but it's really down to the prompting and what you're describing. So you've got to train yourself to train the machine, make it learn.
Absolutely.
I think
Absolutely, Amanda.
our consultants out there in Dynamics 365 land, if they're anything like what I've been hearing, clients are saying, well, we can use AI to automate this and automate that. And very often it's things that we've traditionally even done with Power Automate. So I'm trying to drive home the message that it's about this natural language interaction. And generative AI allows you to summarize and generate, and so it's not just sort of standard automation anymore. It's delivering all these other things that people didn't realize. So I just started this LinkedIn series where I'm putting I put one out there yesterday about in the contact center, when you're interacting with somebody, like a customer interacting with a virtual agent or a live agent, they can pick topics and they can sort of self-serve, but the real power now with AI and generative AI is the natural language that you don't have to what it's like, you press 1 for this or 2 for that, or you choose a topic and you go down the wrong tree trying to get to the right place. Being able to express yourself just with words is, I think, a complete game changer in the contact center world, among other places. So yes, thank you, Tanya, for sharing those features, and thank you, Jen and Eric, for being here. Otherwise, any other questions or comments or discussion?
Just that
Anybody want to
Mike
introduce
put it.
of networking?
Just that Mike put a comment in the chat about AI etiquette. I don't know if you want to expand on that, Mike, if there's something you wanted to add, or.
No, it sounds like
It was to your point about the AI reader. So we talk about AI, but there's a lot of talk in other circles about AI governance. And then we need to talk about AI etiquette. It's not for today's conversation, but just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And people are terrible with their own etiquette, and AI is just going to make that worse. So we need to remind people that there's still got to be rules for doing things.
Yep, exactly. And making sure your legal team is telling you what's appropriate in those meetings. So.
For sure. All right. Well, I thank you for all that attended today. I thank you for all of you who download this on YouTube in future. Let us know if you have any questions. Our next session is at the end of November. Do you know what the exact date is?
I should know these. I should know these off by heart. Hold on, I've got it at my fingertips.
It's going to be about tracking your programs. Yep, 14th.
I think it's the 14th of November. I think it's an early one because we've got an early one in December. So.
Okay, so stay tuned. November 14th. Please tell all your friends. Let's get more people
14th.
From the community involved in this, and love to have more discussion on these important topics about delivering success. Thank you all so much. We'll see you next time.
Can we get the link? Can we get that hyperlink in the chat, please, just to make sure?
For the November. Oh yeah,
the November event. Yeah.
Oh, yep. Let me just. I think
all.
Sign me out.
Thanks,
I can
everybody.
do that now. Thanks,
Wanda. Bye, ladies.
There we go. And Mo, I know you joined